To the Kickass Midlife Method podcast, and I'm joined by some of the women in the community. And today we're discussing the common diet and fitness questions that come up within the community from my one-to-one clients who every week fill out a coaching form with me, which helps them reflect on what's past and their goals for the week ahead. And often there are similar things that are coming up. So I always like to equate it to, and this is relevant for every single woman I talk to on the phone when they come onto the program, anyone I just talk to in general who come onto my workshops. There's this whole misconceptions around diet and fitness, which are a bit like everyone has those jars hanging around or old money boxes, which are full of out of date currency. And that's equivalent of all the outmoded, old fashioned, just plain, completely wrong advice that we've all learnt growing up in our 20s, 30s, 40s around fitness. And what we've got to do is get rid of that currency and start building our money boxes, our minds with the good currency that actually works. But it takes time. It takes time for that penny to drop a number of times. And that's why having a more long-term approach to health and fitness, some of my one-to-one clients, makes a big difference, because even though they're in that one-to-one program, there'll still be errors in thinking or confusion around certain things. And it's when you fully understand the process that a real change starts to happen. I see this so often. And how many times do you see this on these pictures on magazine articles about weight loss? And it'll be a tiny bowl of lettuce, basically, and your juice, and that will be it. And that is and a lightweight, normally a pink one, about 1 kilo sitting behind it. And that is a common kind of image that's given around when you think about diet. So it's little wonder. I sometimes come across this question from some of my clients who are like, can you put my calories, can you put them down to less calories so I can lose weight more quickly? And even if the nutritional guidelines for each individual person are quite big, I'll get sometimes there'll be things like 1 egg for breakfast with a slice of toast, which actually is what you give a toddler to eat. And so it's obviously not going to support a grown woman. So the reason why calories are not cut to things like 900 to 1400, and I say this, some of you, it does depend on your height and your weight, so everyone's different anyway, but the reason why it's not restricted more is because it doesn't work in midlife, and in fact it doesn't really work at any age. It's not sustainable. So if you cut your calories so much, you might, in your 20s and 30s, you may have had success with that. But obviously, it goes straight back on 2 months later. In midlife, it just doesn't actually work at all. Not only is it not sustainable, you're likely to lose muscle. So already with estrogen decline, you lose muscle. 10% is the kind of believed muscle mass you lose from the start of perimenopause till you go through menopause. That's a lot of muscle. And the reason why that's important is muscle is an active tissue, so it burns calories more even when you're sitting around. Obviously, without muscle, you can't move your joints as much. You won't be able to get up off the sofa when you're older. So obviously you don't want to lose any muscle. And again, you're messing with your metabolism even more. Already cortisol and insulin are impacted by hormone change. So if you starve the body, it increases cortisol even more. So again, you're going to be holding onto body fat. It increases your appetite anyway and really impacts your blood sugar. So that is why a really severe calorie restriction does not work. And I know there's kind of confusion around calories. So I'm going to go on to that afterwards as well. The other question that often happens is people think, well, if I lose weight, what happens after I've lost weight? Won't I just put it all back on again? Whilst I say it's not about cutting severe calories, you do obviously need to cut something, and that's based on your height, your current weight, your current body fat. So for some of you on the free challenge, that's why I keep asking you for those scales and that body fat, because that does impact your energy expenditure. So what's known as your total daily energy expenditure. So it's not this figure that's often bounded around in magazines, 1200 to 1500 calories. Actually, what you should cut is based on all those things, the type of exercise you do, how often you exercise. So it's really, really very specific to you. What happens when you reach your target weight is you just go to maintain at the calories which your body needs for your total daily energy expenditure. Now, that won't mean you'll put on weight because you're eating exactly what you should do for your energy. The flip side is you can also, so for some of my clients in my one-to-one, I'm now talking about increasing calories with a focus on a specific macros to build what you may see sometimes on Instagram, bulk, which is a very male bodybuilding thing to increase muscle tissue. So all of that is maybe some more information than you need to, but there's almost like if you're used to running and you understand that you have that periodized running plan where you obviously don't run at really high energy all the way towards a marathon, but for a whole year, if you're training for a marathon, you do a little bit and then you go off onto easy runs. Very similar with your nutritional intake, you have periodized nutrition. So everyone's still listening. Are there any questions about that you want to put in the chat box now before we move on from there? Anyone? No, all still listening? Give me a 2 if you're still listening. I haven't lost you. Yeah, good. Just checking. And then what are macros? Now, I know this is quite relevant to a lot of the free challenge people. And even within the one-to-one, there's still this confusion about macros. Macros are basically just the term that's given to those carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and actually sometimes water. It's quite good to think of that. Your body requires all of those things to provide energy and support for growth, repair, and overall health. So carbohydrates are your body's prime source of energy. So when people say, oh yeah, I'm going on a no carb diet, there are carbs in everything. There's carbs. Carbs are not just bread. They're like in lots of different things. You can't and should not cut out carbohydrates. Proteins, absolutely essential for repairing and building tissues. So it's worth me repeating this again, actually, for free challenge people and also to remind people in the one-to-one that there's no point in doing lots of exercise, doing the resistance work, the strength work, and then not having enough protein. The protein builds the muscle, repairs the muscle tissues that have microscopic tears when you exercise to the right effort level. And the protein knits that back together and grows new muscle fiber. It doesn't work without protein. So you can't do the exercise and then not do the diet because it's pointless. It won't work. And then fats. So obviously they're really important, help you with the vitamins, help you your joints, ligaments, all of that stuff. So as you can see here, 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates, 4 calories per protein, 9 calories per gram of fat. And this is probably in the past where that kind of misconception about low fat diets come from. Obviously, fats have more calories per gram, but you need healthy fat. In fact, for midlife women, healthy fats are also, you need some fats because actually they help in the production of hormones. And so I still get this. So I'm cutting carbs, right? This has been in the 90s. I worked on magazines for some of you who don't know that. And the whole carb thing in the 90s and early 2000s was such a massive thing. You absolutely should not be cutting carbs. Your body needs carbohydrates. So sometimes I will see on check-in forms, I feel like really exhausted. My hormones must be changing again. Actually, most of the time, what's going on is where people are having tiny, tiny little breakfasts, tiny little lunches, and I'm talking 200 calories at breakfast, 200 calories at lunch. 400 calories, it's nothing. The reason you're tired and foggy head and can't remember things is possibly hardly anything to do with hormone and all to do with the fact that you're just not giving your body the food that it needs to actually function. Your brain needs carbohydrates as well. But what is important to understand, and the free challenge lot, I know you would have heard me going on about this quite a lot, is that difference between understanding the physiological impact of fast release carbohydrates, like simple carbohydrates, and sorry, complex carbohydrates. I made a mistake on my slides there. So your simple versus complex carbohydrates, and try not to think of them as good or bad, because actually they're not good or bad. They each have their place. Complex carbohydrates release energy more slowly. So you're not getting sugar spikes, you're not getting a release of insulin and cortisol suddenly spiking to rush it around the body, where simple carbohydrates do. They'll release it really swiftly in the body. Already, estrogen decline makes us more susceptible to cortisol and insulin, which is released obviously to help with blood sugar. So as we become, as in midlife, what can sometimes happen is we become insulin resistant. So therefore, the body doesn't really know how to cope with it. Everything gets laid down as fat. So what you don't want to do is add to the fact that we're kind of having difficulty with cortisol by just feeding your body loads of fast release carbohydrates. Now, unfortunately, it's one of those things that when you're feeling tired, you instantly reach for simple carbohydrates because they give you an energy spike and you feel great for a bit. And then actually what is happening is your blood sugar's dropping and that's contributing to feeling knackered. Normally it's a feeling of knackered. You're not hungry again necessarily, but you feel knackered, so you do it again, and you're on this constant cortisol spike and your body's not using it. You're going back to sit at your desk, and all that's happening to that fast energy is it's accumulating as fat. So that energy that's not used goes into a fat cell. So if you imagine a balloon, those balloons are your fat cells. They stay, you always have fat cells. It just if your energy is not being used, that balloon gets bigger and bigger, and that's the fat cells. Once you start losing the fat cells shrink, but they're always there. It just it expands, decreases according to if you're overdoing the energy that actually your body needs. So you want to be giving it complex carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates absolutely have their place for some people on this call who I'm training for endurance events. You can't perform at your best without simple carbohydrates to help fuel your performance. So that's where we're going with that. So any questions about that? Is that all at the moment making sense? Give me a 4 if it's making sense, 5 if you're like, I don't know what you're going on about. Cool. And then protein supplements. So I'm not hungry, I don't need it. This is why you really do need it. If you are hitting, and I would say at a minimum for every height of person in this group, you'd need 90 grams. Now, some of you, if you look back at what's on your nutritional guidelines, you'll see it'll be higher than that. And that again is based on your height, your weight, your goals, and your energy expenditure, how much exercise you're doing, how much weight you're lifting, that kind of stuff. But at the minimum, you need 90 grams. Every single woman who's ever come onto this program, and I've coached, I think, over 200 now, was not having enough protein. Simple, just not having enough protein. So if you can hit your protein requirements without a protein supplement, great, go for it. But it's hard when we're really busy, rushing around, trying to do meals to actually get that amount in. So that is where a protein supplement, and I recommend Form and particularly that flavor because I've tried lots. So lots of people say, oh, I just don't like the taste. It's like saying you don't like cheese when you've only had Stilton. It's the same thing. You just have to find the one that is more palatable, which is why I recommend Form. And then also recommend it, realize it's a kind of necessary evil. They're not going to taste like real food. They're not real food. But if you want to achieve your goals, then they work. They've worked for every single woman in the program who's had success. So what's happening in that afternoon, that 2 to 4 o'clock time, is you're getting that blood sugar dips. If your lunch was high in simple carbohydrates, you didn't eat enough, you had an imbalance in your macros, for instance, you didn't have enough protein, you might have experienced a blood sugar spike and then it drops. So you're knackered by 4 o'clock, or it manifests as boredom. You go, oh, I'm just going to want, and I do it all the time, just going to wander around and pick at something, and you don't recognize it necessarily as hunger. You're just thinking, oh, I'm bored, I'm tired. The protein shake completely sorts that out. The other thing actually sometimes is it's thirst. So that can be mistaken for hunger. So that's the only other thing. But generally, your diet normally lacks balance and it's often insufficient protein and fiber. So fiber you get from lots of fruit and vegetables. Also, simple one that you can get into your breakfast is flaxseed, which you can scoop into your breakfast, and that will add to your fiber. Or chia seeds, they're really, really easy to add fiber to your diet. So unless basically you're hitting not at least a minimum of 90 grams of the food you're eating every single day, you should take the protein supplement. And I would recommend you use the one that I've recommended because I've tried lots. And this, you might think, what? Workout's too easy? But I'll get this question. The workout is too easy, or can I have new workouts every week? So there is another podcast on this about progressive overload. If you wanted to understand what goes into workouts and why you need to do the same workout at least for 4 to 6 weeks. So, two things here that are going on. And you guys in the free challenge might find this because you're not using weights because it's a group thing. But generally, what you're aiming for when you're doing a strength workout is an 8 out of 10 feeling of effort. So if you've never worked out before or not done very much, it's really difficult at first to have the confidence to push yourself into that 8 out of 10. So you have to learn that. And you only learn that by challenging your body. The worst that can happen when you lift a weight that you can't do it is you drop it on the floor. That's it. You're not going to hurt yourself. All you're going to do is drop it. The caveat to that is squats. If you're using a squat rack in the gym, but I can answer that a separate thing on that. There's safety rails for that. So you need to be thinking about that challenge rate. And if you're in the app, you'll see there's a little dial at the end of your workout that you can rate 1 to 10. So if you've got a workout and it's got weights in it and you're like, it's too easy, I need a new workout. You don't need a new workout. You need to start lifting heavier, tracking your weights. Every set that you do, you need to try and increase it. And every week you do it, you need to try and increase it. At first, you'll find if you build the confidence, you'll find really, really big gains. You've got to jump up quite a lot. As you start getting stronger, those jumps will take longer to do, and you'll be like going up by a kilo, half a kilo, that kind of thing. It's all just about building the confidence. And it's really empowering once you do. And then you start enjoying the workouts a little bit more because you can see the difference that it's making and feel it. So therefore, workouts need to stay the same for 4 to 6 weeks because you need for progressive overload to happen. So there's no point changing a workout. So therefore, you've got to track your weights again. You can't increase your weights because it's all new exercise. Every week you need to be looking, seeing the development, and then the structure of your workouts change. I normally change people's workouts every 4 to 6 weeks, either by increasing in complexity in terms of the complexity of the movement. It all just depends on the individual because they're all tailored to the individual, tailored to what their goal is as well. Then the workouts obviously switched up because you need to jolt the body into further change because otherwise your body also starts getting used to it. So 4 to 6 weeks is a kind of general idea. So anybody know about that? Does anybody say, did everyone know that? 6 if you did, just to check everyone's still listening. 7 if you didn't. 7 if that's all new to you. Yeah, there is, if anyone wants it, there's a 6.5. There is a whole podcast on progressive overload as well, if you wanted to understand it a little bit more. Should I be doing cardio? This I get all the time. So many of you might probably mums, and running became that thing that you could do really easily, cost hardly any money. You could go out and do it, and probably in the past it worked really well for you to lose weight. It doesn't really work anymore. And the number one rule for change is consistency. So that's the other thing is like I tend to start with my one-to-one clients 3 workouts a week and build from there. Once you can do 3, then we'll start discussing whether you need to do more because otherwise we're all suffering from overwhelm. What we don't want to happen is that overwhelm, you start missing workouts because actually the number one rule to change is consistency. So that's why I keep them at 3 and then we progress from there. And then in terms of the cardio, should I be doing more running? No, basically. Running is good for your mental health, your aerobic health, and your performance aims. There might be some people on performance who are doing performance. So for them, obviously, it's a completely different thing. But if your main focus is weight loss, building muscle, you're short on time, then actually the most effective thing you can do is resistance work. Running requires more energy requirements. Otherwise, food, it means you'll have one less hour to do a resistance workout. So for those reasons, no, don't do more cardio. Obviously, for your mental health, if you can fit them in, you do them, you do walking, but just thinking I need to do more cardio because it means I'm going to lose more weight, that doesn't work. So from that basis, you don't want to be going out running just because you think, oh, if I run, I'm going to lose more weight. And that's a big one that I see for midlife women a lot. And this one's a massive one in the check-in forms and that comes back. I just need to plan and prepare more. So for those people in the one-to-one, those forms are for me to read and help in your plans going forward. But they're also a chance for you to to reflect on what you've written. So if you need to plan and prepare more, you need to reflect and plan and prepare more. It is that simple. In the workshop we did last week, it was all about you have to expect. The best thing to expect is that actually some of this is boring and you have to do the boring stuff, plan and prepare to get the results. And if you're not prepared, if you are hoping this way of losing weight, getting fit is all going to be absolutely amazing all the time. You have to just accept that there are parts of it that are really boring and it is about putting in the time, doing the reps, and that's what gets results. So if the things are coming up on your form and you keep writing the same thing, I need to plan and prepare more, plan and prepare more. Use my workshop where I gave you the 5 simple processes to create consistency. Go through that and make sure you do that. As I say, I do it every Sunday. Plot in my workouts, plot in when I'm going to make sure I get the shopping done. All of that kind of stuff is like in my calendar, my Gmail calendar. Not just the workout, the time that it's going to take me to get there, the time it's going to take me to get back. And I will use a completely different word for it. So if for you, that workout in there is going to feel like another diarized thing that you think, oh, I've just got to do it. Put it in as a power session or feeling good session or something that you equate exercise and how it makes you feel at the end of it and put that in it. So it's something you actually look forward to and therefore you ring fence it and nothing gets in the way.